Pixel art is a medium that you often see used in indie games, and that is done deliberately. Indie games usually have quite a small budget due to their small team and little starting money, so they'll go with a stylized look to still have an aesthetically pleasing game while on a lower budget. Originally, indie games didn't all go for the pixel art vibe seen most commonly used today. Well, technically the most early indie games did use a pixel art aesthetic. That is because they were in the pixel art era of indie games. But when you think of indie games and their origins, you probably think of like the indie game gold rush of the early 2010s, where computers that could make games could get in their hands of the public a lot easier, sprouting games like Super Meat Boy and Minecraft. But while there was pixel art stylized games before this, such as Fez, the popularization of indie games using pixel art stemmed famously from the game Shovel Knight, which even I remember at the time being very novel for a modern game to have old hardware limitations as an aesthetic for the game's visuals and music. One of the coolest things about this overflow of pixel art games is that it pushed the medium way past what it would have been on its original consoles, such as Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy, which use its depth of field and HD effects, combining new technology with old. Don't know why they didn't just do that for Diamond and Pearl remakes, but whatever. But even with games pushing the pixel art medium, a lot of people are still getting tired of pixel art games, myself included. I do like it, but there has emerged a new style that is gaining traction that has my heart more than pixel art. That rhymes. And ironically, well, maybe not ironically, but very expectedly, it's low polygon graphics. My personal favorite games and game studios that use this style is Seokcho. I think that's how you pronounce it. However, there is a ton of others that use it. Seokcho made one of my favorite games now, which is Tori 2, and Seokcho has made other games in the N64 style as well. Also, another example of a game using the low poly aesthetic is A Short Hike by Adam Grieu. I actually don't have this game yet, it's on my list, so I'll definitely get around to playing it. But off topic a bit, would you guys be interested in an underrated / incredible indie game series where I review a few really good indie games that I've come across in a video? So like, it'd be like a short review of a bunch of different indie games that I've played recently, basically like recommending the best ones. Let me know if you'd be interested in that, because I had a video that I wanted to make on Tori 2, so I'd love to make more videos like that. But anyway, back to the video. It seems kind of weird conceptually to make a game purposely look worse than the rest of the industry, considering that we are still using polygon graphics to this day. It's not like quite the same as pixel art, because we are still using polygon. It's kind of like using a lower quality camera on film, if you know what I mean. But it still looks nice, and it's nostalgic to a new era of people who grew up with N64 and PlayStation. But why is this so good? Why do you love this style so much? And what does it mean for games in the future? Mitch Pitch on YouTube.com. I definitely hear you asking. Well, I'm going to go into the psychology of why we like it, and what this means for indie games in the future. And what this means for the gaming space as a whole, and game creativity as a whole. Let's first get into why the aesthetic and why the pixel art aesthetic is so nice. Right, because you would assume like the better the quality, the better the experience. That's usually how things go. And it's not like, oh, it's good quality in a certain old aesthetic. It's literally just a worse version of what we use today, polygons. So why do we like it? I think the word we're looking for here is comforting. There is a rise of a new style of music that has come out recently that you've probably heard of. It's called lo-fi hip-hop. Lo-fi being short for low fidelity, literally meaning low quality. It achieves this with intentional environmental noise such as distortion, hisses, and scratches that you would hear on an old cassette or record, combined with its jazzy soundtrack and looped drum beat. These imperfections bring the music genre a homemade feel. Stripping away the perfections of production quality almost makes it, in a sense, like relatable, if that's the right word. You feel cozy and comfortable as you listen to it, like homemade cookies compared to mass-produced ones. It also has to do, obviously, very heavily with nostalgia. Art mediums that are done in low quality now are done as homages to past limitations. Lo-fi hip-hop scratches and environmental noise are what was required on older technologies such as records, which bringing them back with newer renditions invokes a nostalgic, warm feeling inside you, like smelling something that reminds you of your childhood. So there is that link of low polygon / pixel art resonating with people because of nostalgia, obviously. But I do think it goes deeper than just it's nostalgic. There is a coziness brought from these games that I don't really see emulated as well in modern games. Another point for the low poly art style, which I personally think holds the most weight, is that it allows for 3D indie games. With the 2D art style pixel art, it kind of limits the amount indie games can do. You can't really make 3D games with pixel art. I mean, some do, but at least most don't. But with low polygon graphics, it allows resources to be pulled away from the graphics, and it allows developers to put all their focus into the gameplay. which I think is the most important part of a game. I might make this topic in particular its own video, but the idea of a game focusing way too hard on graphics instead of gameplay is why games nowadays are feeling stale.
I used to play games all the time growing up, but in the last few years, my passion seems to have faded a bit. So I thought, maybe I'm just getting old. But no. So recently, I started playing Zelda Breath of the Wild for the first time. I know it's long overdue. The game blew my mind. Then I realized something. Perhaps it wasn't because I was getting old. It's because games have gotten worse. I know, graphics and everything has gotten better, but the core mechanics that makes a game fun, I think has been lost. Not all games, by the way, but a lot of them. I mean, look at how many broken AAA games we got over the last few years. I mean, look at how many greedy-ass companies care more about implementing DLCs than crafting a masterpiece.
Games are getting more realistic, but games are supposed to break the boundaries of reality. It makes sense why Among Us / Fall Guys type games become explosively popular is because the focus was put entirely onto the gameplay loop. Like, why don't big game developers utilize low quality graphics like pixel art and polygon? Not only does it create a cool aesthetic, but it allows so much more resources to be put into the gameplay, or other stuff like the music, the story, whatever. Like I said earlier, one of my favorite new games I've played recently is Tori 2. It only takes about 5 hours to 100%, and it was made by a small team, yet I had so much fun playing that game because the gameplay loop was so polished. If you don't know what Tori 2 is, basically it's not anything super special. It's pretty much just like Run if you played that game on Cool Mass Games, where you essentially just try to beat the level, and it's a fast-paced platform. Except it's not auto-scrolling, and the goal is to beat the level as fast as possible by optimizing jumps and being precisely perfect. But the thing I love about Tori 2 is the ranking system of levels. It's so fun to master a level and meticulously do the right things to get that S ranking. Some of the levels are genuinely really hard to master, and you have to be like almost pixel perfect at times. And it's not even like that difficult of a game. Like I said, you could probably 100% it in like 5 hours if you wanted to. But some levels take like 7 to 30 tries to S rank, which was enough for me to like want to try and get every shortcut possible, how to like get every part pixel perfect so that you can get that S ranking. It does make you feel like a speedrunner. That is kind of a tangent, but I'll bring it back around and say that this is obviously a game that was very heavily focused on the gameplay loop. And like a lot of indie games, they had a gameplay idea in mind when they made the game, and then they made it around that gameplay loop, which I think is just better than the next high graphical improvement empty open world game that is pumped out, in my opinion. I mean, Elden Ring was pretty good, but like when I see the new Sonic game, I just see a corporate attempt at making a trailer selling Sonic game that's just a graphically impressive empty open world. If they made a Sonic Adventure 3 with the same graphics as they had in the original games, but it was a massive game with tons to do and really satisfying controls, that would be a lot better. But big game studios don't think like that. Indie games do this best in that they make games that are nice, cozy, small, but unique experiences, while bigger game companies often just go for the biggest next graphical advancement that they can do, which isn't entirely necessary in my opinion. I am kind of repeating myself now, so I'll just leave it there. But the point of this video is that I'm loving this era of low poly graphics that are coming out that like indie game developers and animators are utilizing. Obviously, it's an extension from pixel art, like naturally the N64 era. It also kind of has to do with people becoming nostalgic for that era. Like I'm seeing more and more now, people very nostalgic for the 2000s, where before it was like all the 90s and now it's like the early 2000s, just because like it's a different generation of people growing up, so that's part of it. So I wonder what's next. Well, after low poly, we had just like better low poly, like really trashy CGI renders, and then it kind of just went into good stuff. So I don't know what's next. Back on topic. Another fun thing to point out is that because of new technology, we can actually take advantage of the fact that we are using lower quality graphics and do some stuff to them to make them modern. Like picture this, a low poly game with low poly character models and environments, but the water is super high definition and flows super realistically. To me, that would be like such a cool combination. And to bring it back to Tori 2 again, for example, some of the levels they go with a vaporwave kind of aesthetic, and that works really well with the fact that it's low poly. Vaporwave is a modern internet style, but combining that with that retro low poly look just merges perfectly together and creates a brand new style. I don't know, I just love it, and I'm glad I'm seeing more examples of indie games and animators utilizing, you know, this style, but updating them in clever ways to be modern and really nice looking while still keeping that retro aesthetic. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Aesthetic. Again, if you want to see the indie game review series, let me know, and if you have any suggestions for indie games I should play and review, also let me know. If anyone knows Coffee Talk, I love that game and not many people talk about it. Anyways, lots of cool video projects in the pipeline, so make sure to subscribe. And that's the end of the freaking video. Click away now!